journée, vous trouvez pas? Une bonne journée pour démissionner? Non?
Merci tout le monde, merci d'être ici dans une belle journée d'Ottawa.
I went home, discussed with the boys, put them to bed, walked till midnight in the storm. I woke up, it was great. I use the old cliché, this is the first day of the rest of my life.
J'ai également eu l'occasion de réfléchir. Donc hier soir, au souper, j'ai partagé avec mes enfants la décision que je partage avec vous tous aujourd'hui.
The time has come for me to step aside.
There's no easy way or ideal time to leave.
I've been at the heart of the government, including being Prime Minister in a very challenging time.
But the decision about the future of our government will be made by Canadians.
1957 ended an era in Canadian political history. On June the 10th, the Liberal Party, headed by Louis Saint Laurent, went down to defeat at the hands of the Progressive Conservatives. The Liberals and Mr. Saint Laurent had campaigned on the basis of the party's record. The approach didn't appeal to the majority of the Canadian electorate. The new head of the Progressive Conservative Party, John Diefenbaker, made a series of definite election promises in addresses across the country. And when the votes were counted on the night of June 10th, the Conservatives were found to have taken 111 seats against 103 for the Liberals. The Liberals were out. John Diefenbaker's Conservatives were in. The June the 10th vote was a record one, and for the first time in a national election, Canadians not only heard the results, but saw the candidates themselves in their statements of victory or defeat. Television had become an important part of the Canadian political scene. On June the 17th, Prime Minister Louis Saint Laurent went to Government House and tendered his resignation to the Governor-General. The formalities of a request to the Progressive Conservatives to form a government went on from that point. The Governor-General summoned John Diefenbaker to Government House. Mr. Diefenbaker accepted the request, and a new political era had started.
I saw His Excellency the Governor-General, informed him as to the results of the election, gave him my resignation, effective on Monday next at the hour of 12 o'clock noon. He will proceed to provide an opportunity for my successor to take office.
I still haven't gotten over the shock yet of seeing John Diefenbaker's departure, if you will, from the Conservative Party of Canada.
Mr. Pearson has resigned formally only as leader of the Liberal Party. Under the Constitution, which takes no notice of such things as parties, he remains Prime Minister. He says he'll carry on until the party can choose a successor. That could be 3 or 4 months. Time yet to carry out at least some of the program before the House.
I wish to inform you of my decision, taken after lengthy and serious consideration, to resign from the leadership of our party. I feel that this is the appropriate time for me to take this step. I do not need to tell you that I have reached this decision with great regret, but I am convinced that it is the right one. I shall soon have been in the public service of Canada for 40 years.
While his decision to retire came as no surprise, the timing perhaps did. One theory has it that he felt himself that no one else was quite ready to take over. Another, that a Liberal Party suffering heavy criticism from the opposition, the press, and the public clung to the Pearson image as still being the best they could present. Well, whatever the merits of those speculations, Mr. Pearson has specifically declined to put his hand on any particular shoulder. There is no predetermined successor.
And the Liberals cheered. Their own effort in Quebec had gone well, but then came results from Ontario, and it quickly became clear their efforts in Quebec could not move a nation. The recorded campaign song came to an end, and nobody started it up again.
That's the electoral process, and you have to respect the public and their perception of the two parties.
The announcement, when it came, was sudden, shortly after 11 this morning. Trudeau had just told the Liberal caucus, now he made it public.
I'm announcing today that after spending nearly 12 years as leader of the Liberal Party, I'm stepping down from the leadership and asking the National Executive of the party to call a convention for next March to choose a new leader.
Trudeau said it was time for his party to rethink policies and to rebuild. His own leaving would be an act of renewal. But he insisted he was not entirely leaving public life, and he pledged his best efforts in the referendum campaign.
I've thought a good deal about a change of leaders with the Quebec referendum facing Canada, presumably late next spring. I want to assure all Canadians that wherever I am or whatever I do, I will continue to work and fight for our country.
Then he ended with a kind of farewell to the media.
And if I can be permitted to turn around a phrase, I would say that I'm kind of sorry I won't have you to kick around anymore.
The Clark government has fallen, and it appears there will be another election in Canada soon. The Conservatives were defeated tonight in a motion of non-confidence on the budget. The NDP and the Liberal Party had both said they'd vote against it. And this morning, the government's defeat became likely when the Social Credit members decided to abstain.
The Clerk of the Commons read out the fateful numbers just over half an hour ago.
Yeas pour 139, sont 39. Nays contre 133.
Mr. Speaker, I rise on a point of order. The government has lost a vote on a matter which we have no alternative but to regard as a question of confidence, and I simply want to advise the House that I will be seeing His Excellency the Governor General tomorrow morning.
Going to be a revulsion at the avidity for power, at the lust for power displayed by the Liberal opposition. Disgusting when they don't even have a leader themselves, or their leader is retired. He's gone, that they're causing another election. The people of Canada are going to rise up against this and put an end to these years of Liberal arrogance and dominance in this country.
I think a lot of people don't like elections at any time. They like politicians, but I think the people of Canada realize that Joe Clark just doesn't have the ability and credibility.
I think that the fact of the matter was, if this had been a government which was prepared to listen to the Canadian people, if we'd had a minority government that was prepared to listen, I think we would have had a very different situation.
Prime Minister Trudeau walked into his office early this morning, gathered his staff together, and broke the news. After 16 years as leader of the Liberal Party, he's going to give someone else a chance.
This simple one-page letter was delivered by hand to Iona Campanola, President of the Liberal Party of Canada, just after 10 o'clock this morning. It read,
Dear Iona, I wish to inform you of my decision to resign from the leadership of the Liberal Party.
The letter was signed Pierre E. Trudeau. When the news first broke, reporters rushed to Trudeau's office door. The question that greeted him was not simply why, but why today?
Had a good day yesterday and worked on Aboriginal rights, and it seemed like a good day to have a last day.
Trudeau added on his way into his office that he'd made the decision after taking a solitary walk last night during the capital's biggest snowstorm of the year. This afternoon, party president Iona Campanola called a news conference to say that the party executive will meet this weekend to pick a date for a leadership convention. It will probably be in June. Campanola said Trudeau phoned her this morning before sending over his resignation letter, and at the time, a thought struck her.
I felt it was a very historic moment and a very historic time for Canada.
Then, as he left his office this evening, Trudeau ran down the sequence of last night's events that led to his decision to quit now.
I went to judo with my boys. And, a very good judo lesson because nobody was there because of the storm, so we had the teachers all to ourselves. And I went home, discussed with the boys, put them to bed, walked till midnight in the storm. Interesting, eh? And then I went home and took a sauna for even an hour and a half. It was all clear. I was going to leave, but I went to sleep just in case I'd change my mind overnight, and I didn't. I woke up. It was great. I use the old cliche, this is the first day of the rest of my life. Here we are.
Trudeau first attracted national attention as a sort of philosopher-politician. It seems he wants to leave the same way. He said as he walked through the storm last night, he looked for signs of destiny in the sky. There were none, just snowflakes. So he listened to his heart, and his heart, it appears, told him it was time to go.
Behind that crush of cameras, you see him there, John Turner, smiling
on a night that has to be very tough for him to take, the kind of defeat the Liberals have gone down to. The nation is sitting on the edge of its seat in a way tonight to hear just what John Turner has to say.
May I congratulate Mr. Mulroney and the Progressive Conservative Party on their on their very and absolutely convincing victory. I want to assure Mr. Mulroney, as I already have personally on the telephone, assure him that he will have my full cooperation in arranging an orderly and speedy transition of government. The people of Canada, from coast to coast, have spoken, and the people are always right.
What has happened in the past 8 weeks, a time when this man took over the Prime Minister's job, took over the leadership of the Liberal Party, a time when the surveys indicated, the polls indicated that in fact John Turner could take the country, could win election as Prime Minister. He made the fast decision to run. With a summer campaign, it did not go well, obviously. Look at the numbers we've seen already tonight, 211 Tories, only 40 Liberals. But he did make the decision. He was the man who we had all been told was so cautious, would not make up his mind quickly on certain things. He made up his mind quickly on a summer campaign. It backfired badly for him.
The speculation was fueled by a steady stream of aides and allies to 24 Sussex Drive this morning and last night. Later, the Prime Minister went to Parliament Hill with his wife and 2 of his children to end the speculation.
After almost 10 years as party leader and 8.5 as Prime Minister, the time has come for me to step aside. I've done my very best for my country and my party, and I look forward to the enthusiasm and renewal that only new leadership brings. From free trade and NAFTA and tax reform and the GST and privatizations and deficit reduction and fighting inflation and lowering interest rates, we have made the decisions that are now strengthening Canada's competitive position.
He's put us in a lot of hardship and hard times with free trade and stuff, so it's good.
On this historic day, his political adversaries weren't particularly charitable.
Here's a Prime Minister that is going to leave a country with the highest number of unemployed ever, the record number of bankruptcies, personal and business, and the highest debt ever, having brought in a GST and a bad trade deal. Well, that's the record that one gets judged on.
Perhaps predictably, Mulroney's decision moved his fellow Conservatives the most.
I think in time the country will see that his departure is also going to be a great loss to the country.
Thank you very much.
Mulroney intends to stay on as Prime Minister and Conservative leader until his successor is chosen. That's expected around mid-June.
Today is a time to move on, for me and for our party.
Many saw her as the future of the Conservative Party 6 months ago to the day.
Kim Campbell!
Her star rose quickly, making history as Canada's first female Prime Minister. But that star crashed just as quickly, making history again with the Conservatives' worst ever election defeat. At this party fundraiser last month, Campbell implied she'd be leading the party longer than many expected. Sources say that speech sparked some senior Tories to turn up the pressure for her to step down sooner than later. One of them was at her side at today's news conference, party president and former BC MP Jerry St. Germain. But Campbell would give no reasons for why now, just the bottom line.
I believe that this is the right decision both for me and for my party.
As a friend and advisor, Vancouver lawyer David Kemp says he's had many long phone conversations of late with Kim Campbell.
She's taken in, I'm sure, some advice that might have been painful to receive. But, you know, this is not a person who does things under pressure.
And now all eyes turn to Jean Charest. By this time tomorrow, the party's executive is expected to have named Campbell's leadership rival to the top job.
It really falls squarely on their shoulders to determine what they want to see happen, and we'll wait and see what they decide.
The Prime Minister met his MPs, and within minutes of the cameras leaving, he delivered the news. The same news he later read to reporters.
I will not run again. I will fulfill my mandate focused entirely on governing from now until February 2004, at which time my work will be done and at which time my successor will be chosen.
Chrétien says he has been troubled by the fighting in his party and he had to put a stop to it.
I have reflected on the best way to bring back unity, to end the fighting, to resume interrupted friendships. I have thought about how much time it will take to finish the jobs we were elected to do, to complete the agenda for governing which I set out last night.
As advisors looked on, Chrétien thanked the party, which he calls his family.
At the age of 70, I will look back with great satisfaction as I take my rest with Aline, secure in the knowledge that the future of Canada is unlimited.
Cabinet ministers said the Prime Minister had always promised he'd do what is best for the party.
I think the Prime Minister took the step that he did because he felt that it was important to bring healing in the party, and I think it's a responsibility for all of us now to try to bring that about, not just for the good of the Liberal Party, but because we're the government.
18 more months to do
The Prime Minister will continue to govern for 18 months. It's up to the party to decide when to call a leadership contest to replace him.
It was, of course, on the slipperiest, slushiest, iciest day of the season in Ottawa that a winter election suddenly became a reality. Inside the House of Commons, history was being made. Just 17 months into Paul Martin's first elected government, the end came quickly.
That this House has lost confidence in the government.
The voting date will be announced tomorrow, but it's expected to be January 23rd, allowing candidates to break for the holidays.
Martin, the 21st Prime Minister of Canada, and one assumes that this result tonight sends him from the Prime Minister's chair to the Opposition Leader's chair. He will remain Prime Minister for at least another week, Hugh Segal suggesting perhaps another 2 weeks, while the transition takes place of power from the Liberals to the Conservatives. Been in power for just a little over 2 years since he took the reins of the Liberal Party from Jean Chrétien. Wins election in 2004 in a minority position, and tonight winds up with 103 seats to the Conservatives' 125.
I've just telephoned Stephen Harper and I've offered him my congratulations. The people of Canada have chosen him to lead a minority government. I wish him the best. We differ on many things, but we all share a belief in the potential and the promise of Canada and the desire of our country to succeed.
Just hours after defeat, the Conservative Party is promising a review to figure out what went so wrong. There are plenty of suggestions, but Stephen Harper is putting the blame in just one place.
The disappointment you also feel is my responsibility and mine alone.
Harper has asked the party to find an interim leader and start a leadership race.
But know this for certain. When the next time comes, this party will offer Canadians a strong and clear alternative based on our Conservative values.
As he walks away from the party, he does it knowing he defined those Conservative values. Whatever happens next will inevitably be a shift, with numerous opinions about just what change should mean for this party.
So last night over dinner, I told my kids about the decision that I'm sharing with you today. I intend to resign as party leader, as Prime Minister, after the party selects its next leader. This country deserves a real choice in the next election, and it has become clear to me that if I'm having to fight internal battles, I cannot be the best option in that election.
The Prime Minister repeatedly described himself as a fighter, but staying on as leader is not a fight he could win. Calls from within his own party to step down have been intensifying. Those internal battles have been bruising, unrelenting, and only intensifying. After last month's stunning resignation of his top cabinet minister, Chrystia Freeland, Trudeau's Atlantic, Ontario, and Quebec caucuses, they all warned he's lost most of their support. Trudeau also says the House has been paralyzed and unproductive over the past few months, and said it's time for a reset to bring the temperature down. Prime Minister asked the Governor-General to prorogue Parliament until March 24th, and she's granted that request. Now, that buys the Liberals some time, but not a lot, just 77 days to launch a condensed leadership race to replace Trudeau. Now, as for the opposition, they're continuing to vow to vote non-confidence and bring down the government as soon as possible when the House returns in March.
New Democrats will be voting against this government for an election.
Everything's out of control, and now the government is out of control. This cannot go on.
The Liberals hope Trudeau's departure changes everything. Polls have suggested the Liberals under Trudeau could have been headed towards not just defeat, but decimation in the next election. And MPs want this move to rescue their party ahead of what could now be an election campaign as early as this spring.
It's time for change.
I'm not really surprised.
But it makes me nervous to see what could come next. So I'm not sure, but eager to see.